Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about scaffolding as a learning theory in distance education and e-learning. A learning theory is something that seeks to explain the process we go through when we change or acquire knowledge. There are lots of different learning theories. We've looked at 32 alone for teachers, and there are many more variations of these, but the one that I'm going to focus on today is scaffolding. Scaffolding refers to a technique where you break the skill or knowledge to be acquired into smaller pieces so that a student can move through acquiring those pieces and wind up mastering whatever it is or learning whatever you wanted. So by breaking the pieces into smaller steps, you're going to be able to hit the student in what is called the zone of proximal development, or ZPD, which is a space between what a learner can do without assistance and what a learner can do with adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers, meaning that they can get feedback from you or get feedback from somebody who already knows how to do it about how they're moving through the different steps. The theorists behind scaffolding are Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky, who in the 1930s came up with the zone of proximal development we just spoke about, and Jerome Bruner, an American psychologist who in the late 70s based his model of scaffolding on this zone of proximal development. He decided that in a very specific way, scaffolding would limit the number of choices that the learner would have to focus them on what was essential, and then they could spend their time mastering those things. I think that makes a lot of sense. So question is, if this depends on interaction between the student and the teacher or the students and each other, then how are you going to do this in a distance education mode, especially if you have asynchronous communication? I think the way to do it in asynchronous communication is to use e-learning in the form of games like those in Kahoot, because you can design those games so that they can give immediate feedback, suggest other alternatives, and walk the student through in the same way that the teacher would. I think you're still going to need some one-on-one contact, but I think you can do a lot of the work that way with e-learning tools. So let's say that you were going to do the scaffolding for writing skills. We're going to assume everybody already knows how to write a sentence. So to write a paragraph is not as easy as it looks. You need to identify a topic, create an organized flow, stay on the topic, use strong details, use language that fits the audience, and use the conventions of grammar. To sit a kid down and say, write a paragraph when they're in like second grade is asking them to climb Everest without oxygen. So if we were going to break it down, what we would do is first we would master turning the prompt into a sentence. We would make this into a game with e-learning. So let's say the prompt is, what's your favorite food? And the kid would then know to say, my favorite food is a hot dog. They eventually would learn to say, my favorite food is a hot dog for many reasons, because that leads right in. And again, we could do this with a game in Kahoot. Then we need to pick 3 details that matter on the topic. We could again make this an e-learning game, or also give them a video with outrageous examples where we say, I love to go to the beach. Boots are my favorite thing to wear. Snow boots are the best. My uncle gave me snow boots once. I wore them on the ski slopes. It was great. Most of the kids can immediately decide these are not on topic. And by doing that, you kind of get them to see what is on topic. Then they need to write sentences for the details, which could be in the form of an assignment that they hand in. Then they would have to write a closing sentence that shakes hands with the opening, meaning that it goes kind of with what you said at the beginning. So if we start out talking about my favorite food is a hot dog, then we're not going to end by saying, and those are all the reasons I love pizza. So again, that could be an e-learning. And then putting it all together in a practice assignment makes sense, because then they would turn it in and you could give them feedback on how well they did with the whole thing. But they would have acquired these skills step by step. I think that would be important, and I know that it works. So these are the references that I used, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the chat thing. If you'd like, just leave me a message, and I look forward to seeing what you all have to say. Thank you.